I've worked with Dr. Allday at UK, and he has been not going to try to embarrass him, a mentor to me. He is very knowledgeable in the area of behavior, and I know you are really going to enjoy hearing what he has to say. And many of you all have had me or have been through the Exceptional Learner class and other classes where we've talked about positive behavior strategies, and so I'm very excited to introduce Dr. Allday, and if he wants to tell some more about himself, I'm sure he will be wouldn't mind. So let's all welcome him.
It's hard to follow up after eating, so my guess is to see how long it'll take me to put at least somebody to sleep. I think I can do it in 15 minutes or less, so it'll be good. I guess just a little about me. I'm originally from a small town in Alabama. I am a first-generation college graduate, and so I have been. I guess I'm finishing up my 7th year at UK, and I got there by way of College of Charleston in South Carolina and Oklahoma State, and then got there by way of W.F. Burns Middle School. I was a middle school self-contained EBD teacher. So EBD, emotional behavioral disability, and I taught self-contained, and I had me, and 18 kids, all, which, you know, I heard, I can't remember his name, talking about middle school with the hair. Isaac, yeah, I heard him talking about middle school earlier. And you know, and it's funny because every kid in middle school has EBD, so it's kind of a great thing. Mine were just the most EBD of all the middle schools. So this is something I'm very passionate about. The idea of who are our most vulnerable students. You know, I mean, y'all get inundated so much with, you know, with all of the trauma-informed care and all of the just the sadness that seems to be pervasive in our world. So who really are our most vulnerable students? And that's kind of what I'm hoping to talk about, and then hopefully give you some things of what to do. So my hope, I've given Leanne, she's supposed to just say, you know, tell me to stop, because I can tend to go overboard. But my hope is to talk about some things fairly quickly, and then let you all ask questions if you have questions. I'm the director of the Applied Behavior Analysis Program at UK. We do have a severe behavior clinic that we run in collaboration with UK Healthcare. So we see kids who have really severe problem behaviors. And by really severe, I mean pica. Anybody know what pica is? What's pica? Eating non-edible things. It takes one episode of pica to kill you. You can die from one thing of pica. So we do that. We're working with a 16-year-old now who was he has to wear a helmet, and he engages in SIB. Anybody know SIB? Self-injurious behavior. That's right. He engages in SIB was doing it in the neighborhood of about 150 times a day of hitting his head. And I don't mean like this. I mean he stands up and hits his head. We have kids who are aggressive. We have kids who are biting. Or I mean, this is what we do. And our job is to figure out what in the world do we do about that, right? And so for you all, we're not going to go that severe because most of y'all aren't going to deal with kids like that. Most of y'all are going to deal more with the behavior that is going to be more like that. Tired of that yet? That's the kind of stuff y'all are going to be dealing with. And to me, sometimes that is way more frustrating than the kid that's hitting his head 147 times a day, because you're just like, please just stop. Please, would you just not do that anymore? And, you know, or the kid that beatboxes. You know, don't beatbox right now. Beatbox later. So these, you know, and each of y'all have your thing. Each of y'all are going to have your thing. I mean, I had my thing that kind of got to me, and you'll have your thing that gets to you. So kind of the hope is to help you to know what can I do? What can I do as a teacher, as just a person with this? And so the beautiful thing for me is I never get the opportunity to add any of my personal beliefs, my personal spiritual beliefs into anything they ever talk about, because when you work at a public university, you don't do that. But I can with you all, so this is going to be good. So this is going to be, at least the hope of what we'll accomplish. So my first question to you, it's not a popular question, but that's one I always ask. How many of you all plan to dislike children in 15 years? How many?
Is it the children from now in 15 years, or the new children?
No, just children in general. Just not your own personal children. You have to like them forever. But other people's children. One honest person. One honest person. So I always, the class Dr. Rose used to teach at UK, I would do a guest lecture, and this way I always start. How many of y'all planning to not like kids in 15 years? And nobody ever says, oh, me, I intend to really hate my job and think it's going to be miserable every day. I can't wait to be that miserable. Nobody thinks that. Nobody. So my question to you is, what are you going to do? Because I can tell you there's a lot of teachers who are mid-career, because this is about mid-career, and they don't really care for children. Some of them. Not all of them, some of them. And that's the whole point. That's the point. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? Because if you just go like, oh, I'm just going to love children and I'm going to be so excited, and then you get the kid that's bang, 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 or calling you things that I'm not going to say because we have children present, what are you going to do for those kids? And those are really the ones who we really need you to like. These are the ones we really need you to like. So none of y'all are planning to do this, so what are you going to do about it? I mean, how many of y'all are student teaching now? Okay. Give me the name of the kid. Just first name only. Who's the kid? How about that? It didn't even take a second. It was like immediate. So again, imagine you get we'll go with Jeff. Let's say you get a classroom of Jeffs. A classroom of Jeffs. For a whole year. 180 days of Jeff. So again, as odd as this question sounds, what are you going to do for Jeff? Because, the kids who are easy are easy. The ones who are hard are hard. And what we got to do is help you to figure out what to do. So this is kind of where we want to be. So coming up soon, that's really small. Wasn't that small on my computer, but I guess it really is. It's coming up soon, you're going to have kids that are going to come into your class, and they're going to be unprepared for school. Secondary? Who's going to do secondary? Okay. When the words cross your lips of, you're 16, you should know better, then you should know better than to say that. You should know better. My wife was a teacher. She taught kids 18 to 21 who had disabilities. And she had this one particular kid who would not close the door to the bathroom. And she worked it was a cool program, but it was in a house, and she taught the kids like daily living skills. And so she had this one kid, and in the house they had a single bathroom, and the door would be like where the drum set is. And the kid would go in there to use the bathroom and leave the door open. She's like, close the door. What are you doing? You should know better than to keep the door open, right? So she goes and has an IEP meeting in this kid's house. And in the middle of the IEP meeting, mom gets up and walks and proceeds to use the restroom of the solid variety with the door open in the meeting. And the light bulb went on for my wife, and she said, he really doesn't know better. How about that? So I'm telling you, when you get your 16-year-old and you say you should know better, then yeah, they should, but they probably don't. So what are we going to do about that? So you're going to have these kids who will come in, they're not prepared at all for school. Kindergarten. That's all you need to say. They're not prepared for school. You're going to get kids who are academically delayed, as in they're in 8th grade and they read on the kindergarten level. And you have to teach them. What are you going to do? you're going to have kids from economically depressed. Here in Jessamine County, it was reported that they use Narcan every day, sometimes multiple times a day in Jessamine County. This is what you got to deal with. We've got tons of kids living in foster care or grandparents who are the primary caregivers. This is what we got. And there we go. And here's your job. You have to teach them mastery of the standards. Congratulations. It is great. I tried to make this very uplifting. So, so hopefully you're feeling very uplifted now. But this is the reality of what you're walking into. This is not a cakewalk. This is anybody that ever tells you that being an educator is going to be, soft music and rainbows and flowers that's not true. The truth is, this is it. We're dealing with kids who are dealing with stuff I never dealt with as a kid. I never had to revive my parents from an overdose. I never had to do some of the other stuff. And so what I have learned over the last 20 years of doing this is you feel paralyzed as a teacher. What do I do? I don't know what to do. But I have to teach them the standards. So you may say, I signed up to be a teacher, but they want to be a social worker. I mean, I don't know how to be a social worker. If I would be a social worker, I'd have been a social worker. I'm not a special ed teacher. I signed up to teach social studies. It's not special ed. I don't know how to deal with that. I didn't sign up to be a psychologist, but I'm supposed to know about this stuff. I didn't sign up to be a nurse, but I got to deal with that. I didn't sign up to be a social skills expert because, look at my social skills. They're not very good. I didn't sign up to be a parent. I did not sign up to be a miracle worker. That's not what you signed up to be. But that's what you're going to feel. And I hate to say that. And I'm not trying to be defeating to you, but just reality. Reality is you're going to walk into some difficult situations, and you're going to feel like that. And what can you do about it? What can you do about it? So you're like, I don't know. That's what you keep asking us this. So I'm going to get to that. So your questions become, how do I get to these kids that are really hard to teach? How do I do this? How do I help kids who don't care? I'm thinking about my examples here. So I had a fourth grader once who told me, I don't need a job. I'm going to sit on the couch and smoke WEED all day, just like my dad. Fourth grade. I don't need to do that. Why do I need to go to school? I've had lots of kids tell me, why do I need to even study? Because my mama doesn't do anything, she still gets paid. So, what do we do? How do you help that kid? 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 And this is the conundrum I find myself in, because I feel like we have a moral obligation to help these kids. As of where we are right now, to incarcerate one kid in Kentucky is one person is $14,000 a year. It's 3 times the rate to educate one kid in Kentucky, almost 3 times the rate. So here we are. This is what we're doing. We know that California, and we know that New York, and we know that Texas uses their 4th grade reading scores to project out how many jail cells they need to build. That's sad. So what are we going to do? We're going to do something, and I believe we can do. So let me just go through this. So I don't need to teach you all or talk to you all about how to deal with the kids who do what you ask them to do. Stand up. She stands up. You don't have to really stand up. She's like, oh wait, she stand up. You didn't obey. So you don't have to ever talk about those kids, because those kids are easy. Raise your hand. They raise their hand. Stand up. They stand up. Sit down. They sit down. Do your work. They do their work. That's probably who you all were. The kid who never moved off green on the flip chart. You grew mold on it because it never moved. And then you had the Logans of the world, who had the teachers on their 5th Sharpie trying to write their names, and they rubbed it off and having to move the clips over. So some common things that we think. We think that kids should always be want to learn. Well, they're a kid. They should be creative and they should want to learn. Well, that's not true. How many of y'all like to read for pleasure? Okay. Do you like to read Russian language books? Why? But you like to read, right? But Russian? Я не понимаю? That means I don't understand. Okay. Well, why wouldn't she like Russian language books? She doesn't understand Russian. If you're in 8th grade and you read on the kindergarten level and they hand you a science textbook, what does it look like? Russian. But we expect those kids to, you should want to learn because, learning is fun. Learning is not fun for everybody. How many of y'all have tried a new language since you've been an adult? It's no fun. I butcher English, and I speak Alabamian, and that's about the best to have. So you can't assume that all students are going to just want to learn because that's a faulty assumption. And the ones who you're going to have trouble with aren't going to learn intrinsically. So you got to do something about it, Then we have to make the assumption that if you ever reward for good behavior, you're going to expect it every time. I can promise you that if the University of Kentucky does not pay me at the end of the month, I'm going to quit showing up. I expect a reward every month in the form of a paycheck, and so are you. But that doesn't mean that when we say a reward, it has to be something tangible. It has to be like, here's a sticker, or here's a this, or here's an M&M, or all it is a pleasant consequence. I'm going to drive home, and I'm going to drive the speed limit. And my reward for getting home and driving the speed limit is going to be, I didn't get a ticket. Score one for me, because that is my reward. All people are looking for is a positive consequence, just like you all. I mean, you want a positive consequence. I want a positive consequence, and sometimes we have to provide opportunities for that. There's another common thing. If I allow a student to earn something, then I'm really bribing them to do something they should want to do anyway. But again, I love what I do. But if you take what's paying, I'm going to quit showing up. I don't think they're bribing me to do this, but I do expect something for what I do. I'd probably show up for a month. I'm not real bright, so I'd probably show up at least 1 month and I guess I'll get paid this month, and then I probably wouldn't. But so letting kids work towards something is one of the most powerful things we can do. Now, I'm not talking about always like, it's got to be an M&M or a token or this or that. It's a positive consequence. That's really what we're trying to get them to work toward. We're not bribing them to do that. We're asking them to do this because when you show up to a job, let's just use this as a quick example. I wasn't planning on doing this, but you'll have to cut me off here in a minute. So let's just say that, let's take the approach of what we normally see in classrooms. What's your name? Stephanie. Okay, Stephanie. I want you to come work for me, okay? And I'm going to pay you, how about I start you at $65,000 a year? Does that sound good? Good or not good?
Yeah.
You're good with that?
Yeah.
Okay. So with that, you have to say, sir, yes, sir, when I ask you a question, okay?
Sir, yes, sir.
Okay, great. You're a quick learner, Stephanie. So I tell Stephanie, I tell Stephanie, she has $65,000 a year. I'd like you to be punctual, okay? See, she's brilliant. She's a brilliant student. So Stephanie shows up a minute late, and I'm like, Stephanie, I'm sorry, this ain't gonna work. I mean, I told you this. I'm gonna dock you $500 because you were late. Is that okay?
Sir, yes, sir.
Okay. She says that because right now she's thinking that's still $64,500. I'll take that. I'll still go with that. But there's gonna come a point where Stephanie's not going to put up with that anymore, where every time I'm docking her for what she does wrong. But what's going to happen is that there's going to, that's basically, I guess what we do is we set kids up in the same way. We give them this, and then we begin to take it away. You can have recess, but I'm going to take it away. So who is Stephanie going to blame for her losing money? Her for being late or me for taking it from her? Me. what if I flip the script and I say, you know, you would like some free time? Here's what you can do to earn free time. You do A, B, and C, and you can earn free time. So Stephanie comes in, she does A, she does B, she does C. Hey, you earned free time. Congratulations. Or if she comes in, she does A, and she doesn't do B or C, I'm like, I'm sorry, you didn't earn free time because you didn't do B and C. Who's at fault there? Me or her? She is. So what we do is we really set kids up for failure. We start you off with, hey, you have access to all this, we're going to take it from you. And so then you become the bad guy, and you're the bad guy, and you're the bad guy, and I don't take responsibility for my behavior. Versus the other way is, you start with nothing, and you earn something. Because that's the way the real world is. You used to go to a job, and they say, you have no money today, congratulations. But if you show up and do A, B, and C, you can earn up to this amount of money. How much longer is Stephanie going to work for me if I take that approach versus the approach where I say, you have $65,000, but I'm going to dock you for every time you look at me wrong and don't say, sir, yes, sir. Which I use that because most people forget and don't say that the first time, and I get to ding them, but she's really sharp. Well done, Asbury. Well done. But you see, I mean, it's thinking through it in the sense of what can be a privilege and not a right. What can be a privilege and not a right? You know, because there's privileges. My kids have certain rights. My own personal children have certain rights, and they also have certain privileges. And if they don't meet the behavioral expectations, they don't get the privileges. You know, I mean, the rights they have is I'm going to feed them. But it's also a privilege to have something sweet to eat. And so therefore, if they don't eat what I fed them, they don't get the privilege of having something sweet to eat. It's just common sense, you know. Other things are, you know, like it's not fair for one student to earn something when others don't get a chance. I mean, I could go into that forever, but we'll stop. So here's some basic things just to keep in mind regarding behavior. All behavior is communication. When a kid calls you an ugly name, it's a behavior. When a kid, you know, eats something that's unedible, like with pica, it's communication. Everything that a kid does is communication. You know, I mean, I'm watching them. They're communicating with each other through their behavior. It's great. But it's always communication. So we have to figure out, what are they saying? So are they saying something that we can't comprehend? Like Yanni Panamayu? I don't understand. It's a great word. We have to learn their communication. The other thing is, and I love this, and this happens every time I interact with teachers and every time with parents at our clinic. I hear the behavior's not predictable. He's so unpredictable. Like I'm thinking with the flower shirt. Your kids, unpredictable? See, how many of y'all have unpredictable kids? How about that? I bet you they're predictably unpredictable. In the sense of, I could probably predict that some of your kids, only when you give them independent seat work are they going to act out. Because they sit there most of the time and do what you ask them to do. Like in a group setting, you're like, yeah, I'll sit there. But now, okay, now here's your work, get started. And then you get acting out. But it's unpredictable. But it's really not. And what I've found over the years is you can predict almost every behavior. It's really pretty crazy how much you can predict of behavior. So it is predictable. We just have to begin to look for the patterns, because there is typically always a pattern. Behavior can be increased or decreased. Inappropriate behavior can be reinforced. Appropriate behavior can be punished. This is a hard one for people to understand. Inappropriate behavior. I was out at elementary school here in Lexington, and this little guy, he was working it. He was so stinking cute, but he was working it. I mean, he was really working it. He would act out. The teacher would take him into the hallway, and he'd be laid on his back. You know, so he's laying on his back. I'm not going to lay down because I may never get back up. But he'd be laying on his back, and the teacher would be standing there, and she'd be talking to him with her hand on her hip, you know, like this. And he'd just start pushing himself down the hall. And so what did the teacher do? She'd start talking. And then other adults. So then she comes up. She's like, well, you know better. I mean, and so I watched this kid go from, let's just make the math easy. There's 20 kids in the class. What % of the attention can he get? 1 out of 20 is going to be 5%. That's right. So this kid went from getting 5% of the attention So by the time he had pushed himself from probably here to the other side, he had 5 adults standing around him. So he went from 5% of the attention to 500% of the attention. Which behavior would you want to do? And the teacher's like, I don't understand. He's always doing this. I'm like, yeah, it's great. I mean, who wouldn't want? Here you go. Here's your 1 in 5 chance of winning the lottery. Or here's your 1 in 1 chance of winning the lottery. Which one do you want? I mean, I take the 1 in 1 every time. But so we know that this happens. I was out at the Early Learning Village a couple of years ago. And if you've been out there, you know the hallways are about a mile long for these little bitty kids that are about this big. And so, at least they are colored. And so, I think it was the yellow pod, which is all the way in the back. And this kid was being sent to the thinking room quite a bit. But the whole way down, the teacher's talking to him, and you shouldn't do this, and this is not right, and da-da-da-da-da. This is not the best thing to do. You shouldn't do this. I'm thinking, this is great. This is great for this kid because he's getting talked to in a loving manner because there's no teacher out there that's mean. They're all sing-song voice and they're happy. And they call you friend. Hi, friend, come on. It's great. So here was our intervention. Our intervention was don't talk to him. That was the intervention. And I would walk behind her and she's walking and he's saying something and she goes, I said, I just grunted at her. Don't talk. And so this kid went from having to march the hallway 5 times, and he was engaging in aggressive behavior. He was being aggressive. She'd march him down, march him back. He'd come back. His attention tank would empty, like your gas tank. He'd hit somebody. She'd march him down. His tank fills up, march him back, and then So it took us 2 days to get this kid to stop being aggressive. All because he hated walking down the hall because she was reinforcing inappropriate behavior. And appropriate behavior can be punished. In the same way. And so when you begin to understand these things, this is why this is so important. Because this is what you get. You get this. You get this kid. We call him a boy. We call him angry. We call him emotional. We say he has ADHD. He's from low SCS. He's from a rural area. His dad's on meth. His mom's unemployed. I forgot that one. He's illiterate. Couldn't read that. He has ODD. The new one is IED, intermittent explosive disorder. Every kid has that. It's great. He's a bad kid. He's got a history of abuse. He's aggressive. He's on psychotropic medications. He's a bully. He's hateful. He's out of control. So, what do you notice about the kid? Between that and that. Yeah, you can't see him. All you see for him is the label. And this is what you all are going to get. You're going to get the kid. And you probably already know. And what's your name that was sitting at our table? Kelsey. So Kelsey's thinking about the job she's hoping to get. They're going to tell you day one, oh, you're going to get Joe. Good luck with that. Joe has blah, 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 blah. And there you have it. And all she's going to do is be scared to death of Joe. And Joe's going to come in and go, she goes, oh my gosh, he's going to kill, And that's what happens to kids. Because when all we pay attention to are to the labels that we lay on these kids, it's unbelievable. I had one kid a couple years ago in Nelson County, in Bardstown. The kid was identified as having PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. This was back before when Asperger's was still a thing. Asperger's doesn't exist anymore. Stroke of a pen, this went away. He had ADHD. He had opposition defiant disorder. He had intermittent explosive disorder. And he had obsessive compulsive disorder. One kid, 6 things. Been in hospitalizations like I think pretty much every year. I got him in 5th grade. So when you see this, do you think anybody looked at him as this, or did they look at him as this? I can tell you, that's what they did. So what we really should be asking is, this is a boy having trouble being successful in his environment. So the question we have to ask is, what is the problem behavior? What is he doing? Not is he bad, what is he doing? And ask the simple question, is he getting something from doing it, or is he avoiding something from doing it? It is really that simple. I mean, I feel bad sometimes because to me this is so common sense. This is so common sense. And if people use common sense, I would be out of a job. Common sense. I mean, really and truly, it's common sense. What is he getting and what is he avoiding? Oh, every time he calls me that word, I give him a lot of attention. Maybe that's what he's getting out of it. Every time he does that, I kick him out of the class and send him to the safe room. It could be just that simple. I mean, and I can tell you from experience, it really is just that simple. We add all these labels, and all it does is muddy the water and scare the mess out of you all as general education teachers who have not been trained to deal with some of the kids who, you know, who deal with really aggressive behavior. Special ed teachers aren't trained. Our teachers at UK don't come out even close to prepared to deal with some of our special ed teachers, and I teach the class. And I don't know how to get it across to them because they're like, oh no, you know. I'm like, no, you gotta know. When a kid says, you know, calls you an ugly name, what are you going to do about it? Oh, no, when they spit on you, what are you going to do? When they scratch you or bite you or punch you or kick you or threaten to R.A. blank E.U., which I've had multiple times, kids just figured it out. When they threaten to do that, what are you going to do? Have you ever thought about that? You know, and you need to think about that. I had a kid tell me he was going to do that to my wife. And and you know what I told him? I said, you know, we'll talk about that later. We got to finish math first. Because, I mean, think about it. I live in another town. This kid's 7th grade. He can't drive. I'm pretty sure he doesn't know where I live, and I'm pretty sure he doesn't know my last name. So it's going to be, the likelihood of him actually doing that is not real high. Why was he doing that? I was trying to make him do something he didn't want to do. And in the past, that's worked for him. All I have to do is call you an ugly name, and I'm out. Peace out. I'm going to the office. It's great because Miss Jones gives me candy. Score 1 for me. Or I'm going to the pass room, or I'm going to the safe room where I can watch a video. So this is reality. Why are they doing what they're doing? And so behavior functioning. This is how you deal with this stuff. So here it is. Positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement. That's it. There's not a behavior you can do that I can't bring it back to one of these two things. Even as complicated as we are, we're so complicated, it all comes back to this. And I can tell you, I'm so thankful and so thankful and so thankful and so thankful to have worked in Ukraine. My wife, we lived over there, and I've worked over there. We've worked in Kenya. We've worked in Poland. I've worked in inner city with white, black, Hispanic, Indian, Native American. I mean, you name it. And guess what? Everybody has in common. We're all. You said it. Say, we're all human. And what does? Here's a good lesson for you. What does King Solomon say in Ecclesiastes about the sun? There's nothing new under the sun. And he's not talking about they didn't have iPads back then. He's not talking about iPads. He's talking about human behavior. There's nothing new about human behavior. So as creative as we think we are, and I'm so unpredictable. We're actually very predictable. I can tell you, because when you go in your class, you sit in the same seat. The same seat.
Thankfully, so I remember.
That's right. That's how I always could remember the names when I had about 80-something students in the class. I can remember the names because they sit in the same seat. Makes it very easy. You know, I don't make them sit there, but we're predictable because, you know, it's your seat. So there's no behavior you can tell me that you engage in. I can't bring it back to one of these two things. You go to Kroger. You look down the aisle. You see somebody like, oh, man, I don't want to talk to them, and you go the other way. Negative reinforcement. You see the lights on the top of a car, and what do? Even if you're not speeding, you still slow down. Negative reinforcement. You know, you wear something and somebody says, wow, you look really nice. And you find yourself wearing it again around that person. Why do you do that? Positive reinforcement. I mean, it's not, again, it's not rocket science, but it is hard. It's very simple, but it is not easy. It is not easy. And I'm telling you, this is the hardest thing you'll ever do. Classroom management behavior management of kids who have severe problem behaviors is the hardest thing you'll do as a teacher. And there's nothing harder because they're going to grind on your last nerve. Some of these kids are going to grind on your last nerve. And it's going to be like, you know, the proverbial fingers on the chalkboard. And that's where you have to be ready. This is where you have to be ready because it's not easy. It's really not easy because I always think about, could it be my kid? And it could be. And I can't tell you, and I'm not going to tell you, well, I'll just say, I sat among a group of teachers with an eight-year-old girl who engaged in mostly verbal aggression. Pretty much verbal. No, I don't think she ever engaged in, but the things she said were awful. I mean, they were really awful. And this group of teachers, including the principal, said, well, she's probably just going to be pregnant and drop out anyway. Why should we even bother? She's 8. And that's what a group of teachers said about this kid. Now, I don't think when these teachers or this principal was sitting in your seat, did they ever plan on saying that about an 8-year-old? And my thing is, she can't make a baby now if she wanted to. Let's at least give her a chance. We still got 4 years probably. Let's see what we can do in 4 years. And so the child ended up getting moved to a highly structured classroom, and that's a whole other topic there. So, so this is why I say, and I can't tell you how many teachers I've heard say these things that are awful. And I don't think that these teachers are bad people. I don't want you to misinterpret that I'm saying that they're bad people, because they're not bad people. They're people, and they're people who are ill prepared to deal with some of the most challenging. And again. Don't misinterpret this and think, oh gosh, what have I done? I'm almost graduating now. It's going to be terrible. It's not. Because I don't have to teach you, again, I don't have to teach you to deal with the easy kids. You don't need special training to deal with the easy kids. You know, out of a class of 20, you can predict, almost 100% of the time, you can predict that 2 to 4 are going to give you problems consistently. You can predict that. 16 of them are going to do everything you tell them to do. Everything you tell them to do, they're going to do it. You know, and that's pretty predictable. I kept saying, like, you haven't been in my class, and I say like 18 of 5 kids are acting up. I mean, it's, you know, and I know that doesn't mathematically make sense because there's 5 kids that feel like 18. I can appreciate it. But so again, I'm not trying to be depressing to you, but I'm just trying to prepare you for. Again, the kids who are really challenging. And if you start and you think about this from a behavioral functioning standpoint, it becomes not personal. Like that kid saying he's going to do what he said he's going to do to my wife. I knew what his game was. You know, I've been called everything you can possibly imagine. Everything you can possibly imagine. You know, I knew I had made it one day when I had a white kid call me racist and a black kid call me racist. I'm like, I'm an equal opportunity offender. And it was all the same. It was all the same day, and I was like, yes, I've made it. I mean, I've been told of very dramatic ways in which I was going to see my demise. I'm trying to think of creative ways to say that. I mean, very brutal ways of doing that. I've been told all kinds of stuff by kids. I don't think these are bad kids. It just has worked before. You know, and it just didn't work with me. I mean, you know, because you have to not take it personally. Because it comes back to this. Because even the most challenging kid, you can go back and you can come back and find why are they doing what they're doing? And you say, oh, it's unpredictable? Just stop and think about it. Because here's what I ask teachers. And you can do this. Try this for yourself. Well, let's try this. I'm sorry, flower shirt. What's your name?
Sam.
Sam. Okay, Sam. Your kid, unpredictable. Jeff, unpredictable, right? Is he the unpredictable one?
Well, every day he asks me how magnets work. Every single day, so I can predict that.
Okay, but here's,
Every day he knocks and goes, someone's at the door. So there's things I can predict.
okay,
But then there's some unpredictable.
okay. What's the unpredictable behavior?
Unpredictable behavior. Oh, man.
Okay, can anybody think of an unpredictable behavior from a kid right now you're working with?
Crawling on the ground.
Who said that?
Crawling on
Oh,
the ground.
Crawling on the ground.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's unpredictable. So here's the question I always ask. So this is just for pretend, okay? So let's go with this. So let's say I have $10,000. I have it in my pocket. I'm gonna get it from TELL and give it to him. Here's my $10,000. I want to walk into your classroom and I want to see this kid crawling on the ground within 5 minutes. What time do I need to show up?
7:16.
Is it unpredictable? If you could tell me a window of time in which you know I can see that behavior within even though you know I don't have $10,000 and I'm going to give you, I only have 10 cents. You know, I had to borrow money earlier from somebody, so it's pretty sad. But you know I'm not going to do that, and teachers know I'm not going to do that. And I ask parents this: if I had $5,000, I'm going to show up to your house. I want to see this behavior within 5 minutes. And they're like, well, and it goes from he does it all day, every day, to I'd show up at 12:04 during this time, and you can bet you're going to see it. Then it's not unpredictable. It's very predictable. You know, and this is something that we have to begin to pay attention to, because once we know that, then we can say, what's going on at 7:16? Something's going on, so let's see, what is happening at 7:16 that's going to cause this kid to roll on the floor? Maybe it's coming to school, would be my guess. And it's because school is aversive. And you know, and I wish I'd have saved this, but I didn't, on my little flash drive. The kid, the headbanging kid, we have the teacher collecting data on this number of headbangs and the intervention we're doing, and the worst time of the day is the very first part of the day. But we'll have, I think he's averaging like 20-something headbangs just in the first 30 minutes of the day. Okay? He had 82 just getting off the bus the other day. 82. Well, a couple of weeks ago, 2 weeks ago. So 82 headbangs getting off the bus. And so one of the things they said was, we need to shorten his school day. I'm like, well, you can shorten his school day, but he's still got to get off the bus. You might, you know, so something to think about. But anyway, but you look for patterns like that. So what we know is this kid doesn't like that. And so what we did, this kid is pretty low functioning. So what we did is I said, what's something he loves? She said, M&Ms. I can tell you, I'd rather give a kid an M&M than a kid hit his head any day of the week. I don't care. I mean, at this point, it's not okay. It's just not okay. So I said, just get you a handful of M&Ms. Every couple steps, give him one. And you know, she's been doing that a week, and he's hit his head 3 times getting off the bus in the last week. That's all she's doing. And it's reduced it. And I'm like, you know, if that's what it takes, we don't have to do that forever. We're not going to give the kid M&M for every step he takes. Just like, any of y'all have any little kids? Oh, I know you have some little kids, but anybody else have any little kids? How old? 5. Any younger? We have a 15-month old, and so he's toddling. What did you do with your 5-year-old the first step?
I'm right there in case you might fall.
But what did you do though?
You did the first step, clapping.
Yeah! She's gifted. Not like your daddy, like my family, my side of the family. Look at that. Yeah, go, good step. Right? Y'all seen that? Did you do that with your kids? Kind of not, maybe not that dramatic, but you did that, right? It was dramatic. Okay. So here's my question for you. Here's my question. And what's your name? Yes. Emily. Emily. Is your mom here?
No, it's my grandmother.
Your grandmother? Shoot. Okay. That's good though. You know what I didn't notice your grandmother doing? That actually worked out. I did not know that, but this is good. So you know what I didn't notice about your grandmother? When you walked over here? You know what she didn't do? She didn't clap. She didn't say, go Emily, look at you, you're gifted. My side of the family, that's my genes right there, baby.
She did on me after herself.
But do you see why this is so important? It's because it's not, you don't need it forever. Sometimes you need it at the very beginning to get them to understand this is what you have to do. Like, you don't have to clap for your 5-year-old now. You say, for Pete's sake, would you sit down? Quit running. You don't have to run anymore. You know, then they talk, and you're like, oh, they're so brilliant, they're talking. Then you tell them to be quiet. And then, you know, it's all then you want them to grow up and leave home, and then you ask why they don't come back and visit. I mean, it's this odd thing. So it comes back to function. It comes back to function, to function, to function. And sometimes we have to set kids up to be successful. So let me just, here's the thing that you need to know probably. I got just 2 more things, and I'm going to stop because you have not given me the sign. Okay. The hardest, do y'all know who that is in the picture? Stuart Smalley. What does Stuart Smalley say? Do you remember? I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and doggone it, people like me. Yeah, that's Al Franken, who was a senator from Minnesota. But he was Stuart Smalley on Saturday Night Live a long time ago. Here's the thing you need. I want to leave you. See, I told you, you got to get the hook and pull me out. Here's the thing with thinking about behavioral functioning. Gosh, there's so much more, so much more. With behavioral functioning, if you can do this, but let me tell you, the hardest behavior change is your own. The person you look at in the mirror every day is the hardest behavior to change. It's the hardest one because your intentions are always right, and the kids are always disordered. That kid is really a problem, but it's not me. You know. But it's this, but it's not me. But it's this, well, no, it's not me. I'm not the problem. The kid is the problem. And so you got to make sure that we're aware of ourselves. I can tell you that one of the most humbling things I've ever done in my life is be a parent. I have three boys, and it is the most humbling thing I've ever done. Because my job is to deal with behavior, right? That's what I do for a living. And I'm humbled every day by my children and some of the things that they say and some of the things that they do. But I realize most of the time when they have a problem, it comes back to me. It always comes back to me. So you all have to understand that your behavior is, your behavior really is the hardest one to change. And any intervention, whether academic or social, involves you. So you got to be prepared for that. You got to be prepared. Okay, let me, time for all that, or that, or that. Okay, some things to think about. One, what are you doing? Is it your behavior? The kid with pica, what do you think was causing the pica behavior? It was attention seeking, that's right. All the other people said, oh, it's just sensory. I mean, it's just getting sensory input. We put the kid in a room by himself with edible items that look non-edible, if that makes any sense. So we baited the room with like a bay leaf, because you need a bay leaf, and fondant, cake toppers that are edible, and little things of lentils and other things that you can eat, but they look like you can't eat them. The kids went and sat and looked out the window like this for 30 minutes. When Mom walked in the room, he walked over, picked up something and put it in his mouth. I was like, there you go. And so Mom never believed that she could be the one that could be maintaining this problem behavior. So we had to train Mom on how to not give attention for that, but to pay attention to when he's not doing that. Because, she's doing her thing and she sees, oh gosh, no, don't do that. She's got to change her behavior. So simple thoughts. Is there a common activity you see the problem? Is there a common person? Is there a common location? You got to pay attention to those things, because there usually is. There usually is that. So just be aware of that. And then usually what happens after the behavior? What do you do? Do you get all emotional? If you get emotional when a kid does something, it's funny. I had a kid a couple years ago, 8th grader. He was labeled EBD. Had all these things. I saw that kid say 82 curse words in 10 minutes. It was impressive. I mean, it really was an impressive array of curse words that he threw out. I was like, that's a lot of, some of them I thought, I'm not sure if that's a curse word. Now I have to look that up later because, some I hadn't heard in a while. I mean, he had a very good vocabulary of curse words. 82 in 10 minutes. Pretty impressive, huh? So then, what I did is I asked him, I said, hey, let's go talk, and I said, here's our one rule, we're not gonna cuss at each other. You can ask me whatever you want to, you know, it'll be fine. So he sat 45 minutes with me and didn't say a single curse word. Could the kid control his cursing? Yes. So I asked him, like, you'll be glad I'm not a counselor for your kid. I said, so why are you playing these people? And he looked at me like I, you know, had just grown a second head up here. And he said, you know, it's fun to watch them get mad. He said, especially Mr. So-and-so, and he called the teacher's name. He said, he gets really mad. And it's kind of funny. I'm like, that's what I thought. So we wrote a behavior plan. In the behavior plan, he could cuss one time per period. And the teachers were livid at me because, what do you mean you're letting him cuss? I'm like, yeah, he's already cussing anyway. So if it's, you know, he's cussing on average about 20 times an hour, and now he's going to do it one time an hour. To me, that's successful. So this kid, and I talked to the teachers, and they got, you know, they were okay. And this kid, through a couple of other things, you know, by the end of the year, his EBD label was dropped. The kid wasn't no more EBD than I am. Well, that's maybe I'm probably a little more EBD than him. But it was all about the responses and getting the teachers to understand, don't react, because it's all about you getting mad. And they would get mad immediately, and it would be dramatic. And so what are your responses? What are the responses of others? And thinking about it in that regard. It's important to know students will change their behavior. They will. You do. If you're at Rupp Arena on Saturday night, is your behavior the same as if you're in wherever that place is on Sunday morning? Do you have the same behavior or different? When you're with your family, do you have the same behavior or different? Nobody wants to answer that. It's different, except when you're with your grandmother. It's always perfect. So they will change their behavior. And just because you have a kid last year that was bad doesn't mean it's going to be bad this year. It's all in what you expect and all in how you respond to them. And just be prepared for that. Just be prepared. I always think about, have you tried the easy stuff first? Everything's not hard. When you have a headache, do you tend to go and get, come on, do you go get an MRI when you have a headache? No. You take Tylenol. That's what you do. We had a kid in Montgomery County at a preschool, and they're like, oh, we don't know what to do. We don't know what to do. We can't control these kids. And so here's the intervention. The intervention was sit between the two kids at circle time. And I'm like, wow, that worked. Yep. It did work. Sometimes it's really that simple. Sometimes it's not. But most of the time I find that simple interventions can help. And so 2 takeaways. Ubi caritas et amor Deus ibi est. Latin, I like Latin. Where charity, capital C charity, and love are, God is there. Okay? Remember that, ubi caritas et amor Deus ibi est. To me, this is the hardest thing that you'll do. Giving charity to those who you don't view as worthy of your charity. What are you going to do? Nothing like a quote from Jesus, right? For if you love those who love you, what reward will you have? Huh, a reward. That sounds familiar. Well, we shouldn't do anything for a reward, right? I mean, we don't do anything for that. I think about this. And there's really so much more. Good grief! I teach a lot of classes on this and spend hours and hours and hours doing this stuff. And there's so much more. And I did not even do it justice tonight. So if you don't remember anything else, just remember you are going to have kids that are going to grind on your nerves, and that doesn't make you a bad person. It makes you a person. And what builds your character is when charity and love are there with those kids. That's what's going to build your character. When you can show kindness to the kid who you really do want to just be absent. And I can tell you there were days, and I won't say his name, but I had a specific student, when I'd see him being absent, I thought, it's going to be a good day today. don't make me a bad person, it just makes me a person, because he was tough, and he wore me down. So you know, when you think about this, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do with these kids? Because it's not okay. It's not okay that we let them go to jail. It's not okay that we attribute an 8-year-old to just being a pregnant dropout. It's not okay. And so what are you gonna do? I hope if you have more interest, you know, get as many in-service hours as you can in dealing with problem behaviors, because that's what you're gonna do. So y'all come to this university and you get a biblical education, biblically based education. So what are you gonna do? I mean, I can tell you that it didn't always work out so well, you know, like for Stephen. It worked out so well for Stephen. He got killed. You know, it didn't always work out so well for Peter. He was crucified. Didn't work out for a lot of them, but you know what they did? They had charity and they had love and they endured. So persecution is going to come to you, so don't be shocked. Don't be shocked when you get persecuted, but love those who are difficult to love. Show love to those who are difficult to show love to. And that's what's going to build your character, and that's what's going to make you an effective teacher. And whenever you have that kid that comes to you and says, you know, when I was in 2nd grade, if it wasn't for you, I would have probably just dropped out. You're the only one that ever believed in me. That's what it's all about. And if it happens once, it's worth it. If you keep one kid out of jail, it's all worth it. So I can't tell you enough how much I appreciate the opportunity. And like I said, I probably butchered this because I have way more than I always want to say. But just remember, what are you going to do for those kids, for Jeff? What are you going to do for Jeff? Because you're going to have a whole bunch of Jeffs. So just be ready. So anyway, thank you all very much for your time. I'm sorry
Thank you so very much.
Yeah, absolutely.
So